Well, we're continuing in our study of the fruit of the Spirit. So turn once again to Galatians 5:22 through 26. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Today we are looking at gentleness. That's a word that is not given very high marks. Gentleness, meekness, in most people's mind, equals weakness. And if there's anything that we men don't want to be, it's weak. So this is one that is really, we have to really look at. Now the thing is that in Greek, the word is preis. And that may not be the right way to pronounce it. I haven't taken Greek in 30 years, so some of my pronunciation may be wrong. But Koine Greek is a dead language, so we never even speak it anyway. So it's kind of, but it's P-R-A-E-I-S. And its definition is strong, but tender and humble. So it deals with both physical and attitudinal things. You know, usually when we think of it, it's just physically being weak. That's what goes through so many people's minds. But the first thing about being gentle is being strong. But being strong in a tender way and still being humble. That's gentleness. As we always do, we want to show that this is something that is divine, that comes from having the Spirit in us, and is a reflection of Jesus and the Father. So let us look at Matthew 11:29. Matthew 11:29. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Jesus wasn't afraid to be called gentle. It was okay. To turn now to 2 Corinthians 10:1. I, Paul, myself entreat you by the meekness and gentleness of Christ. Paul was not ashamed to be gentle and meek like Christ was. He goes on to say, I who am humble when face to face with you, but bold toward you when I am away, I beg of you that when I am present, I may not have to show boldness with such confidence as I count on showing against some who suspect us of walking according to the flesh. He's saying, when I was with you face to face, I was humble, but now I've got to be a little bit more bold. I've got to speak a little bit harder because I don't want to have to do it when I get there. But even in his boldness, he's being meek and gentle. Turn now to Matthew 21:5. Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. The last one I'm going to read to show this is Matthew 12:20. Now this is also a quote from Isaiah 42:3. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not quench, until he brings justice to victory. That describes the gentleness. Able to move a bruised reed and yet not break it. The reason I quoted so many of these is because, like I said, gentleness is hard for us to get our head around. So I wanted it to really understand that Jesus was gentle and wants us to be gentle. But this verse gives us a real picture of that gentleness. The wick's almost out. And you're traveling to another room. It's real easy to put it out. But he's so careful, so gentle, that he wouldn't put it out. What I see in my mind, when I hear the gentleness, is my mind goes to all of those doctor shows on TV. In every one of them, there is a crazy surgery where nothing's right, and they're in there, and they're being so precise because the slightest misstep will cause death or paralysis or whatever. That's the idea that I want us to get about being gentle, is that taking the precision not to hurt, not to break the reed, not to stop that wick from burning, taking the extreme care to do the right thing. I'm going to go through a couple of little stories here to show some examples of this. We'll turn to Matthew 18:12. Look at Matthew's getting a real workout today. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go in search of the one that went astray? And if he finds it, truly I say to you, he rejoices over it more than the 99 that never went astray. So it is not the will of my Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. I've said many times that people who claim to be Christians have done more harm to the kingdom of Christ than any of his named enemies, it takes the gentleness and the care to worry about the sheep. That's gentleness. To go off and look for that one. To be careful of the feelings of the people around you. To be gentle. And I think we have become a ungentle society. It's so easy to be nasty on Facebook and mean that we allow that to become a part of our personality. Because you can say it on Facebook, who cares? You can say it on Twitter, you can be all those mean, nasty things, that it doesn't matter how gentle a person is. If you said things like that to somebody's face, you get punched in the nose. But it's easy to do it over Facebook. Gentleness, kindness. There's a lot of things I find funny on Facebook, and a lot of descriptions that I think are pretty close. But I don't repost them because they are not gentle or kind. They're just plain flat out mean. They may be true, but gentleness trumps truth. You don't have to say everything you know. You don't have to always do that. You don't lie, but the fact is you don't always have to be mean. You can be gentle and kind. You turn to Luke, the 8th chapter, and verse 43. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. And immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all people why she had touched him, and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." I don't think I can find a better example of being gentle than that. He was so gentle with her. And you notice, it wasn't the touching that healed her. Her faith in the fact that if she could just touch him would heal her, allowed his power to go out. As Peter said, people are just touching you all over. Those of us who've been to India understand exactly what he's talking about. You're going to be touched all the time. But because she had faith, this touch was different. And he wanted her to know. That's why he goes, "Who touched me?" Because he wanted to give her the comfort that she needed as well as healing. Now, I know that some of you are going to say, well, hey, Jesus wasn't all that gentle. And in our minds, that's true. Turn to Matthew 21, 12 through 17. And Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who sold and bought in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. He said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of robbers." That doesn't seem very gentle. And now, I want you to get the right picture too here. This was not a card table. This was not even tables like we have in our house. They didn't build things with little pieces of wood. These were heavy tables. You might get an idea if I went down through here and started grabbing these pews and throwing them around. That's not very gentle. Well, as Paul said, sometimes you have to be a little bolder. But you have to be as gentle as you can. It reminds me of a line from a movie that's used in police training. And it's a good line for Christians. Be nice. Be nice. Be nice. Until it's time to not be nice anymore. I want you to turn to Matthew 23, 27. Because he wasn't always nice and gentle in his language. "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness." And we'll go down to verse 33. "You serpents, you brood of vipers, how are you to escape being sentenced to hell?" Jesus was gentle, but sometimes he took boldness. Now, the thing is Jesus had an advantage that we don't have. Turn to John, the 2nd chapter, verse 25. That's the Gospel of John. 2 and 25. "And needed no one to bear witness about man, for he himself knew what was in man." And we'll look also at Luke 11:17. "But knowing their thoughts, said to them, every kingdom divided itself is laid waste, and a divided household falls." Jesus had an advantage that we don't have. He knew the heart of man. He knew for certain when to be bold He knew where to draw that line. People, we don't have that advantage. We do not know the hearts of people. There are some people that need gentleness and some that need boldness. But the verse that we keep reading says, against such there is no law. Do your best to be gentle, to be gentle, to be gentle, until it's time to not be gentle anymore. Find that line, and then step back 3 lines, because it never hurts to be over gentle. You can always get bold later. Be gentle. Remember that we don't know what people are feeling. We don't know what they're going through. The nastiest person can sometimes respond so much better to a gentle approach than a harsh one. It's so hard in our world because we've been told so often to stand up for yourself, to do these things. We're in probably the most competitive society that has ever existed. But it's time for Christians to allow the Spirit to grow gentleness in us. To grow a spirit of caring, because that's what gentleness is a spirit of caring. Worrying about the other people around you. Most of us have grown up worrying about taking care of ourselves. Christianity flips that on its, flips it totally upside down. Christianity says, Les, you worry about the people around you and I'll worry about you. Les, you worry about them getting ahead, and I'll take care of you getting ahead. Gentleness, like all of the other fruit of the Spirit, is divine. That's why we keep stressing this, is that this comes from God. You don't get any credit for being gentle and kind and loving, because that's not in our natures. We get that when we allow God to change us. If anybody needs to answer the invitation a public way, we're always giving that opportunity, and we do. You can come forward now as we stand and as we sing.